Now, the daily traded amount of silver at the LBMA, this is everything, right? All the cash contracts at the LBMA daily on every day is 250 million troy ounces. So basically, what he's saying is that whatever they have in free float is now less than what they're trading every day on paper. So in the unlikely event that, let's say, half the people, or let's say one third of those paper contracts want to stand for physical delivery at the LBMA. This free flow is going to last only 3 days.
Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Eric Yeung, aka King Kong 9888 on X, if you want to find him. He's doing some great work about the precious metals market. Welcome again, Eric.
Thank you, Mario, for having me on your show again.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Thank you for being here as well. And I just wanted to let the viewers know that we're speaking on Friday, March 21st. So with no further ado, Eric, could we talk about what's going on in the Sprott silver ETF, or more commonly known as PSLV? There seems to be something going on there that we've never seen before. So if you could, explain to us.
Well, it looks like there's some big entities, probably bullion banks, shorting PSLV. And a lot of people have been talking about that. Why is that? And my theory is that because PSLV cannot you cannot go to PSLV as a bullion bank or an authorized participant and borrow PSLV shares and then try to redeem it for physical. Because it says right in the PSLV prospectus that if you want to redeem the shares to physical metal at PSLV, the shares that you're doing it with has to be encumbered. So if you're borrowing it, that's the definition of unencumbered. If you borrow the shares, that means it's unencumbered, right? It's not encumbered. Encumbered meaning that you're free and clear. Nobody has claims.
Okay.
But if you're borrowing it, it's unencumbered, right? If it's unencumbered, they don't allow you to redeem the shares to physical, right? So it's not. So they can't do what they do to SLV and GLD because that's what they do. Remember we talked about that. SLV and GLD, the bullion banks, the APs, they go in and they simply borrow SLV and GLD shares and they redeem the borrow shares to physical and they use it like a piggy bank, right? That's what they do, and it's a common practice. Robert Gottlieb, he's the JP Morgan executive, bullion bank executive, explained this in detail. That's how they play the arbitrage game, right? Using that with the ETFs. So simple. That's the SLV and GLD. Back to PSLV, like I said, you cannot do that. You cannot just borrow PSLV shares and then use the borrow shares to redeem physical metal because those shares are unencumbered. It's not encumbered, right? You can't do that. So what do they do to suppress PSLV? I mean, if you just let PSLV grow naturally, like for example, recently there might be more retail investors or hedge funds who buy PSLV, right? And if they buy PSLV, I'm not going to go into the technical details of how PSLV procure, but essentially, if more net buying happens, net buying, remember that word, right? Net buying of PSLV shares, okay? Then PSLV will have to buy physical metal for the ETF. So that's net buying. If there's more net buying of PSLV shares, then PSLV has to buy more physical metal for the PSLV ETF. Simple enough. Okay? So what is happening now? all these, APs, it looks like, right? Looks like bullion banks, big entities, they're shorting PSLV. Why is that? My hypothesis is that these entities do not want PSLV to go out and buy more physical metal. So how do they do that? Because like we said, if investors want to buy PSLV shares and then PSLV has net buying of its shares, it will have to buy physical metal, right? So how do these big entities put a stop to that, or at least slow it down? How do they do that? Well, they short PSLV. That's why you see that huge volume of shorting of PSLV. So what is shorting? I'm just going to explain it to your viewers. Simple, right? Shorting is just you're borrowing shares from people who hold the shares, and you're selling the shares right now. And then you return the shares at a later date. That's it. That is shorting.
Yeah,
so if huge entities are shorting PSLV right now, as like on a daily basis, that means that's selling pressure on PSLV. So let's say you have, like, back to my example, you have a bunch of hedge funds buying PSLV shares, but these big entities are shorting PSLV, means they're selling PSLV. That means your net buying might actually be flat or slightly negative, or let's say flat, relatively flat. Then what happens? PSLV doesn't buy as much, or doesn't buy any physical metals at all for the fund, for the ETF.
Yeah, I mean, this is just,
that's it.
It shows to me desperation by the bullion banks, because I've seen the chart of the shorting, and it's never happened before. And the other thing, Eric, it's not happening either on SLV, is it? Or even GLD. And it's probably because SLV and GLD, they're not really bona fide physical ETFs, I would say, and PSLV is, and that is a problem for the bullion banks. And what would you say to people who are invested in PSLV? And a lot of these people, of course, are sometimes also stackers, but they want to have, let's say, if they want to buy a bigger quantity, and instead of having to keep all that silver close to you, you get it through PSLV. What would you say would be a good way to stop their shares being lent? I guess I saw someone who contacted you on X. He replied and said, I have my PSLV with Fidelity, and they offered me a pretty good loan rate. So yeah, what else can one do to stop this? Because it seems to me that it's a total manipulation of the market, and unfortunately, like the market regulators, when it comes to gold and silver, they'll do nothing to really stop it.
So apparently, if you don't call your broker, even if they, let's say, don't offer you a borrowing rate, they can take your PSLV, SLV, and GLD shares and lend it out, apparently. So especially if you have a margin account, that's what people tell me. If your equities account is tied with your margin account, they can do that. And so this is not financial advice, but I was told that you just simply need to call your broker or call whoever is handling all your equities and tell them that you don't allow any sort of borrowing of your GLD, SLV, and PSLV shares. It's that simple. Just do not allow it. And then that will stop all this, big bullion bank, AP, whatever, right? Borrowing. of PSLV, SLV, and GLD shares. It's that simple. It's not, you don't need to buy anything new. It's just pick up the phone, call your broker. That's it.
Yeah. I saw the other day, maybe yesterday or the day before that. Is it true that the shorting of PSLV shares, they've shorted more shares than there are shares existent? I mean, that of course would be naked short selling, which happens all the time. I mean, I saw a guy who runs a big brokerage company in the States. He was in a video a few years ago, and he admitted we even sell shares that we don't have. Do you think they could be doing that in PSLV?
No, I don't think so. I saw the actual, like, somebody posted the number. I think it's below 10%, but they don't need to, like, of total outstanding shares I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
But the percentage increase of short positions that they've taken is geometric. We all saw that chart. It just went up more than 100% in terms of, like, the number of shorts that they added for PSLV. But in terms of overall, out of all outstanding shares, it's below 10%. But that's not the point, Marius. The point is that they just did whatever is enough to suppress PSLV ability, or not, I shouldn't say ability, or PSLV's physical silver adding mechanism to kick it. That sounds better.
Yeah.
So basically, that's what it is.
Yeah. So here's I found the chart, this chart, so you can see.
Yes.
I mean, this is huge. There's definitely a problem. So how do you think, Eric, this is going to sort itself out, and how long do you think until? I think the silver price has been suppressed for so long that once this blows up, because I don't think these kinds of how can I say, nefarious activity. We can see this is totally unusual. I don't think they can last forever. So I know it's hard to predict, but do you think we're months away, or weeks away, or years away? I tend to think we're pretty close to some kind of event.
Well, they are praying that they're praying a couple of things, right? Number one, they're praying that the London silver shortage situation is going to ease itself. Why do I say that? Because if you look at the London physical silver inventory, the vault inventory, I'm talking about LBMA, it decreased 1,000 metric tons last month from the month before. So you might ask yourself, is that a huge number? Let me put that into context. According to Robert Gottlieb, since the middle of December, the LBMA has been drained of 109 million troy ounces of physical silver. That's equivalent to 3,390 metric tons. So that's in line with what I just told you, right? 1,000 last month. So let's say 1,000, little bit more every month. Guess how much free float physical silver there's left at the LBMA. It's not the 20,000 metric tons that they tell you. Because remember what we talked about, right? Like 20,000, that includes the allocated stuff that they can't touch. Like either owned by ETFs or some of their other customers. I mean, they can get the ETF stuff, but they have to go through that, borrowing, and redemption process that we talked about, right? So let's focus on the estimated free float. So this is what Robert Gottlieb reported. The estimated free float of physical silver at the LBMA is at 247 million troy ounces, which is less than 7,670 metric tons. Now, the daily traded amount of silver at the LBMA, this is everything, right? All the cash contracts at the LBMA, daily, on every day, is 250 million troy ounces. So basically what he's saying is that whatever they have in free float is now less than what they're trading every day on paper. So in the unlikely event that, let's say, half the people, or let's say one third of those paper contracts want to stand for physical delivery at the LBMA, this free float is going to last only 3 days. I'm just saying, like, hypothetically, right? Of course, me and you both know, Mario, that they got a hell of a lot of paper compared to physical. Probably, even in this scenario right now, probably more than 10 paper to 1 physical, right? So some experts estimate that this free float number that they have, the 7,670 metric tons, which is 247 million troy ounces, might last them 7 months. 7 months is not a long time, Mario.
No, I mean,
yeah.
And you said that the last month it was 1,000.
1,000, yeah. So 7 months, right? Around 7 months.
And it could increase. Who knows?
Exactly. So we know it's draining, right? This is straight from Robert Goddard. The guy is there right now as a commodities trader. Is doing it at the LBMA in New York. So we know that this info is legitimate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it just goes back to what you said, Mario. You said that there's a tightness in the silver market in London and at New York at the COMEX, and there's also a dislocation going on. So, like you said, Mario, this suppression of PSLV is just one way for the big boys, for the APs or bullion banks, whatever you call them, to make sure that there's no additional demand on physical silver other than what is out there already. Because imagine this, if it's 1,000 metric tons of silver demand per month right now from the LBMA. Now, this is just the vault demand, okay? Because as we know, the LBMA also settle these OTC contracts outside of LBMA approved vaults as well. So it might be more than 1,000. But 1,000 is just the vault number. So let's say PSLV all of a sudden, like this short is gone. They're not shorting PSLV anymore. And PSLV is adding 500 more tons every month into its vault. That's going to take that 7 months and shorten it down to 3.5 months. That's what we're looking at, Mario. They're trying to save their own skin.
Yeah.
By just decreasing all other avenues of demand of physical silver outside of what is going on right now at the LBMA.
Yeah. Yes. Why do you think they're so adamant on keeping the silver price from having a natural price discovery? I just if it's such a useless metal as they seem to think.
Well, first of all, it's not useless. It's a very useful level.
I know, not for you and I, but a lot of these they act as if it was, though. That's what I was trying to say.
I think what's happening, Mario, goes back to gold. I think the U.S. government is repatriating some of its gold, a lot of it, through its bullion bank, U.S. bullion banks. Okay? So I think that is proxies, which are the U.S. bullion banks. And then people who are close to the U.S. government, they probably know of this, so they are participating somewhat in the importation of physical gold in the U.S. So not all the physical gold, the 2,000 plus tons that StoneX reported, that import 2,000 plus metric tons in total, not all of it are from U.S. government proxies like the bullion banks, not all, but most of it. Some of it probably from people who call wind, like Donald Trump's buddies. I'm just saying, hypothetically, right? It happens all the time. But what is something that tracks gold that the US government may not watch as tightly as gold? It's silver. It's silver. So a lot of these people, the bullion banks, their value customers, the people who know what's going on, they are probably importing physical silver into the US. So that is my theory. And actually, it coincides with a lot of what other experts are saying. I mean, they are missing the US government proxy part because some of them need definitive proof. I get that. But the other parties that are involved in importing these precious metals, gold and silver, into the US, I think we're in agreement. So that is what's happening. I think because gold is being repatriated by the US government through its bullion bank proxies, silver is tagging along because these people who know that gold is being is going to be higher in price, probably. In the next year or two. So they want to be on the silver train. I think that is what is happening. The people will know are importing silver. So it's not just industrial demand per se. That's my point.
And they want to keep the public away from silver because they want to get the silver before the public.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you see that every day. There are people, the experts out there saying that there's no silver shortage of any kind.
Yeah, like Jeff and others.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
but like, how do you define a shortage, right? Like, I asked them that question. How did LBMA worldwide? If the price is right, there's always going to be silver or gold. So if you define it that way, there's never a shortage, right? So these people, I can talk to them all day, and I can ask them these questions.
Yeah. I mean, you're doing like a really good service to the precious metals investors, the stackers, because you're using a lot of energy and to look into this thing and try to explain to people. And I'm really glad I found you. You know, we've been following each other for a few years on X because I've been trying to expose this manipulation, as you can see here. On my channel, I even have a playlist, Precious Metals Manipulation, and it goes back 9 years, and like people like Bill Murphy from GATA, they've been doing it since 1999. I think eventually it's going to be like USAID. It's going to come out and people are going to say, well, that was not a conspiracy theory. So I'd like to thank you for, what you're doing here. Eric, I hope you have a great weekend in Hong Kong, and I'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Mario. You too.
Thank you.